It's about that time. It is another Saturday morning, which means it's time for the Remax Magnolia Realty Show. And of course, joining us this week, we have Paul Smith. How you doing, Paul?
Hey, I'm good, Curtis. How you doing?
I'm doing good. So you didn't get to go down to Vegas with the crazy ladies from the brokerage?
No, I'm back here working while they're away.
Well, you're probably better off for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I did see some of the photos because we've been talking about this the last few weeks. Of course, Christine Allen, your contemporary there, she shaved her head for charity.
Yeah, raised a lot of money. Shaved her head.
Yeah, so that's a risky thing. I have scars. I wouldn't be able to do that. Like, it would not work for me. But
I have short hair, and I wouldn't do it either.
Yes, but good on her. But
for sure,
they're still in Vegas, so who knows what kind of trouble they're in right now.
Yeah. One more night in Vegas.
One more night. Yeah. Okay, well, that's good. So it's us talking today, and I guess we're going to chat about something that you know a lot about because it's your other thing you're heavily involved with is modular homes.
Mm-hmm. So we'll call this Modular Construction 101.
Okay, because I know there's a lot of misconceptions and thoughts about modular homes, dating back to, what we've known as modular homes from the 60s and the 70s and the 80s. And like anything, there's been huge advancements.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of questions when someone asks me about modular, they say, oh, do you mean tiny homes? Which is, it's much different. And I guess to start the conversation, we'll talk about what modular homes aren't.
So, that's a good question. Because,
that's a good way to start,
Because people probably do think, like you said, that tiny homes are part of the modular home family, but they're not. That's a whole other thing than those.
Exactly, yeah. So what they're not is mobile homes, which what you've seen at most mobile home parks. So those are homes sitting on pads on a temporary foundation. So what that is usually two steel mobile homes are typically built on two steel I-beams below them, and then they're sitting on concrete posts and then strapped down to the ground, both vertically and sideways to prevent them to flying away in high winds. So
yeah, we know what happens to those in the southern states when a tornado hits a trailer park.
Exactly, and then they're not tiny homes either, which is the tiny homes are typically built on a chassis with permanent wheels on them, and that falls into a different. So mobile homes are considered this classification is Z240MH. So that's that side, and then tiny homes on a chassis, those are Z240RV. So it's more of a three-season.
I was going to say it'd be considered more of an RV, I would think, because it's on a permanent wheelbase. Right?
Exactly. So relaxed requirements. So not as much insulation. Relaxed requirements on electrical, plumbing, and mechanical. Those sorts of things.
Whereas a modular home, that's something that it's prefabricated and it kind of puts together. It's like, for lack of a better word, to really overly simplify it, it's like putting a bunch of Lego blocks together.
Exactly, yeah. So that CSA certification is A277. So that's a nationally recognized certification. And it's basically built the same way that a site-built home is. So there's similar requirements. And I guess one thing to start with that too is that CSA A277, it's not a building code, but it's a certification that CSA has. So it's a way of certifying. So even though something is CSA A277, it still has to follow those local building codes. Like for example, in Mission, all homes in town require sprinklers. So even though they're A277, there would be that additional requirement on sprinklers.
So yeah, there's different building codes and bylaws by community.
Exactly. Yeah. And then I guess some of the other terms that modular are known as is considered off-site construction. So that can be used interchangeably, and factory built or prefab construction. So that all encompasses modular. So yeah.
So now, if you were we've kind of tried to simplify it here, but yeah, like you said, it can be prefabricated. So you can have you can bring in 1, 2, or 3 pieces, and then just kind of put it together on site.
Mm-hmm, exactly. Yeah. So and put as many as you want together. You can stack them on top of each other, too, and. Yeah, so factories are required to complete a complete quality control manual with checklists. So basically, it's just like any other factory. So it has to be built exactly the same way every time. That cuts out some red tape because when you apply for a building permit, there's not many inspections. So you would have the foundation inspected, and then the entire building would be inspected off-site at the factory. And then once it's dropped into place, the city would then inspect the connections to the foundation, the services, and there's nothing else for them to inspect. So
Okay.
yeah.
So it gets things. It's a little speedier this way.
It is speedier, absolutely. So yeah, when you get your building permit, at the same time you're building the foundation, you can be building your building. So that time can be drastically reduced. Here, I'll post this on our YouTube video with diagrams of this. So if you're interested, you can go to Remax Magnolia.
Realty.
I
know the address
YouTube
now.
channel, yeah. The YouTube channel also to see these diagrams in the video.
Yeah, okay, that's kind of cool, yeah. And then you can just kind of add from there.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit like, I know there's not so much around here, but there's been that bit of a push for container homes, for example.
Yeah.
My stepsister in Australia built a container home in Perth.
Oh, cool. Okay.
But not that I've seen it or been there. But so, for example, like you have things like that too that I guess are of a similar vein. But again, now you're going through all the red tape because you're just getting a shell.
Exactly. So, yeah, and there are companies that do make container homes A277, and they make quite good ones. But when you're working with that as a container as the building block, there's a lot of challenges that go along with that. The flooring system is this really thick wood that's difficult to drill through and run your services through. And then with that, working with that metal, you have to spray foam the walls. So that adds some cost. And when you spray foam those walls, you still have to you have to fur them out to put something, to put drywall on, etc. There are some challenges that go along with container homes, but there's some really cool ones out there.
Well, I imagine in Australia, the insulation isn't the big thing there for her compared to here.
Exactly.
But I mean, I can imagine it. You are taking a metal shell that is just that, and then repurposing it and building a home. And I know I've seen some wonderful designs and people using 2 and 3 and 4 of these containers and making some pretty cool places.
And is it sorry, did you say it was your sister?
My stepsister.
Oh,
yes.
Stepsister. And have you seen the home?
I've seen pictures, but I've never been to Australia. And to be honest, in the time my dad and my stepmom were married, I've only really met my stepsister like 5 or 6 times.
Oh, cool.
But no, she's really cool and stuff like that. And she's that kind of person that would like the challenge of building.
Does it look like a container from the outside, or is it? Has it been
bit?
Okay,
but
cool.
Still, you can tell. But she's repurposed it enough and done some cool stuff.
Cool.
With it, so
yeah.
But it's definitely something that people can do, and I can see why they would want to. But again, like you said, a lot of challenges, right? Because they're not coming with the insulation, and like say with your prefabricated home that we're talking about now, the modular homes. I mean, you've got all that stuff already pre-built. That's to code.
For sure, exactly. And then so modular, it goes on a permanent foundation. So there's a few different types of foundations. That picture on the top right there, that's one way is by helical piles or screw piles. So they screw these big long screws with these fins on the bottom of them, and basically that's what your home sits on. So a little bit cheaper, and in like environmentally sensitive areas, basically your home's just floating on the ground. So it can work well in environmentally sensitive areas, but the easiest way would be to build on a crawl space, because you can easily run your services through the floor, and that's the way to do it.
And I imagine something like a modular home would be great for people if they were wanting to build off the grid, or maybe they're out in a place that's a bit more remote. Maybe they're on an island in around Vancouver Island somewhere, or maybe even up north out 20 miles out of Quesnel or something. I imagine this would be something that would be good for a lot of places like that.
100%, yeah. To get labor out in the middle of nowhere to finish a house would just takes forever, and it's just very costly.
Yeah, and here you could have your modular home, again, depending on how many you decide to use and how you want to layer them up and things like that, and you can build quite the little mansion
for sure
in the middle of nowhere without having to deal with all that labor shortage and things like that.
Exactly, yeah, for sure. So another question I get asked too is modular construction cheaper? Which is it's a bit of a loaded question, but the short answer is it can be cheaper, and it can be cheaper, but in terms of like we were talking about, the efficiency of your labor working on site. So it's there's reports saying that you can save between 20 and 50% by building prefabricated, just because everything's there ready to go, and there's just a lot of wasted time when you're building on site. from so many different reasons.
Well, you're not getting those like, oh, you know what, where you put the wiring, now we have to move it because I have to put plumbing in there, or vice versa, or something like that. So you're not getting those little headaches.
Yeah, I got stuck in the driveway, or where's the materials, or the guy hasn't shown up with the materials,
or we got the wrong, ventilation system or something like that.
I got to go back to the lumber yard to get some screws. Those can be costly endeavors for sure.
And the efficiency then of putting it together when you are on site is going to be that much better too.
Exactly. Yeah, for sure.
like I keep going back, it's Lego, right? You're putting it all just together, piecing it together. Yeah. I'm oversimplifying it big time, but sometimes it's good to just get that image into people. It's just, you're kind of connecting the dots and the blocks here in a quick fashion.
Exactly. Yeah. So there is that cost savings, and the other cost savings too is the time it takes to build the home. So if you have construction financing, that's usually at a higher interest rate, and time is money. And if it takes you several extra months, then you're making those extra payments, which can really add up.
Absolutely. All right, we should probably take a quick break here. Looking at the clock, and we'll do that, and we'll come back and do more of our Modular Home 101 right after this. If people want to see your listings and more information about what you guys have at Remax Magnolia, where do they want to go?
RemaxMagnoliaRealty.com.
You nailed it. We're back with more right after this.